On today's show, looks like we got a series now. The Cavs are reeling. We're going to talk about their ugly, embarrassing Game 4 loss on today's Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Cavs podcast. I am Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarrell. I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, let's dive in. Game 4, Evan. A good first half for Cleveland. All credit to them. We could have been very well on our way to doing a podcast and all of that with this team being up 3-1 in this series. And you say, hey, you know what? They got punched in the face in game 3. They didn't really look like they wanted to be there. And then they rebounded. They looked really good. They figured it out. They got a nice road win after scoring 37 points in the second quarter and leading at the half. And then the third quarter happened. 10-point third quarter, 4 of 18 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3. Orlando scores 37 in the quarter, including 12 from Franz Wagner. Evan, I think that the Cavs are just telling on themselves. Like they are telling you what they are about. They are telling you where their head is at to some degree. I mean, that third quarter, I think, is up there with the most embarrassing thing any team in the NBA has done in this postseason. This is now a series, and if you told me you think Orlando is going to win this at this point, considering the way they've looked the last 2 games, I would not tell you you're wrong by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it is definitely a series. Credit where credit's due. Orlando defended home court, and Cleveland did not. For whatever inexplicable reason, game 3, maybe throw that out the window, but like that was just a horrendous loss altogether, like deflating, embarrassing, et cetera, et cetera. We talked about that ad nauseum for last week's show on Friday, but I have to say this game 4 loss might be worse than the game 3 one, just because in the first half, you hit the nail on the head. The Cavs came out locked, loaded, primed, like they were playing physical. They were imposing their will on the Magic. They were, like, you know, despite the circumstances, whether it's just Max Strus picking up a couple quick fouls or, you know, just the hostile environment that is the Kia Center down in Orlando, like the Cavs were handling things, kind of showing a little bit of bounce back and pull that maybe they'd shown during the season, in the regular season, but it's also something they didn't showcase when they were in the Garden last year, which, you know, the Garden's a different beast than the Kia Center, of course, but that's neither here nor there. The Cavs just came out so flat in the second half. It was remarkable, honestly. It's like the team from game 3 checked in coming out of halftime and completely checked out. Like Orlando outscored them 27-5 at one point, and it was just, you know, a very bad performance across the Rubicon. I think Donovan Mitchell said he needed to be better, and Donovan Mitchell's been pretty bad for the better part of this series outside of just the scoring outburst he had in game 1, if you really want to chalk up to that. But that wasn't very efficient scoring on game 1, but neither here nor there. But like the fact that he didn't score at all in the second half, and the Cavs shot only 17 3-point attempts, and like JV Bickerstaff kept his rotation tight and maybe didn't get creative with things, like it's kind of stunning. Like Jamal Mosley made the simple adjustment of pulling Jonathan Isaac from the starting 5 and putting Wendell Carter Jr. in that spot. And the Cavs' seemingly physical edge has just evaporated because Wendell Carter Jr. is a big enough, strong enough body to deal with what Jared Allen has been doing for the opening 2 games of this series. And the Cavs have yet to find an answer to that. And that just really, really, really surprises me.
I mean, I don't know if I'm surprised, if I'm being honest with you.
I'm surprised that in the fact that, like, I don't know.
Well, no, if you're surprised, tell me why you're surprised.
This team is better. We've talked about this all season. They're better talent-wise. I have seen some very good coaching from JV Bickerstaff this season, and it all just like has gone out the window at the worst possible time for them. And I just don't understand like how a Ziggy of AK on Twitter said, like, Bickerstaff is coaching each game like it's a regular season game instead of game planning for it like it is a playoff series. Like, he is just maintaining the same rotation and status quo instead of making these game-to-game adjustments, whereas Mosley made an adjustment on top of the defensive blitzing, and the Cavs have yet to kind of like put things in place to counteract that. And now that commanding 2-0 lead they have is been evaporated, and now it's a best of 3. And God knows how Tuesday's game or game 6 will go, or even game 7 if it goes that far either will go.
I just think when this team, look, playoffs are a different thing, different seasons. It's often a different sport. But I keep coming back to this and watching this series. The Cleveland Cavaliers, as a basketball team, told you what I think they are during the regular season. They told you that they were not going to be consistent. They told you that they were not going to be good at making adjustments, that they were going to leave a lot of food on the table as far as things working. They were going to tell you that they didn't really have an identity. Like, where we have ended up, considering the first 2 games, it does feel like whiplash. It is a massive disappointment. I think if you're a diehard fan, if you're that team. But in some ways, like, I'm not surprised. Like, this feels like what the Cavs were capable of. Like, yes, the first 2 games went great, but this team just wasn't good since the All-Star break. They don't have good habits. Like, I get being surprised based on the first 2 games, but considering like how last year went, and then you think about what this regular season was and how that ended up, I'm kind of like, yeah, like this team being capable of this and falling apart like this, I'm not really surprised. Like, no. I'm not shocked at the end of the day.
That part, yeah, that's not shocking if you look at the grand scope of things, but I think, I don't know, man. Just the fact that the Cavs have refused to go with a 1 big 4 shooters lineup, just because, like, yeah, sure, Dean Wade is kind of a linchpin of that, and Dean Wade's been ruled out for the entire first round, but like, you can still get.
But if Dean Wade is vital to you functioning, you're done. Like, congratulations, you're out of here. Yeah, you're done. You're done.
And so that's what I'm getting at is, like, there are things the Cavs have done this season that have worked that they have not approached or gone to at all in this series. And sure, it's worked in the first 2 games, and I think, that's because, Jonathan Isaac was starting, and it allowed the Cavs to just kind of build a rhythm and tempo and, I guess, impose their will physically on the Magic to open each of the first 2 playoff games. But I'm kind of, I guess, mystified that, like, it seems so obvious, and yet, like, they're not doing it. I think that's what's surprising me. Like, and maybe mystified is the better way for me to put it. It's just like, why aren't you? Like, why are we doing, like, yeah, the 2 bigs lineup has been functional, but like, Orlando is technically gone. So they went smaller in the second half with Mo Wagner at the 5 and surrounding him with like Franz. And like, Isaac is out there at the 4. He could be a 3, 4, or 5 in that scenario. But like, the Magic had bigger players, sure, but like, more or less we're doing a 4 out, 1 in approach with like Isaac being the one guy in and Mo Wagner at the 5 being the other guy out because he can hit from 3. Like, the Cavs didn't counteract that until like 3 minutes left in the third quarter. And the game was like more than it felt like it was over at that point. And I'm just like, well, why didn't you go to this sooner? Why didn't you go smaller sooner? It just seems like bad coaching and bad habits, like you said too, are the other thing that has just been really killing them. And it's been something that's been killing them all year. And you hoped, at least heading into the playoffs, they could shake these bad habits. But to your point, like, they're not as easy to get rid of as it seems, and it is just really hamstringing them and likely has them staring down another possible early end of their season.
Let me tell you this too. Not everything. The Cavs, I think at times, like in the first half at least, were gritty and bumping and getting texts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I loved when Franz Wagner, like, in terms of like what it said about his attitude and and the mental side of it, when he crossed over George Niang and pointed at him and got a technical. That was awesome. Okay. The Cavs need someone to just like, they need Donovan Mitchell or someone to just be like, I'm going to absolutely cook you and I'm going to like have an attitude about it. The Cavs like don't have an attitude. They don't like the personality of this team like isn't there. If you think about the best teams in the league, Denver, Miami last year, Boston, I think even this Orlando team like has a personality. I can't tell you what the Cavs personality is, what they're like about. For that to be the case for me as someone who like I watched all these darn games, a lot of them multiple times. I don't really understand like what the I don't know what the deal is. I can't figure it out. I just can't do it.
I think that's where I'm at too. Is like I can't quite put my finger on it. Like, yeah, I think a lot of it is the tactical approach to how the Cavs have handled this. And I think a lot of it does go on coaching, but it does go on the players too. Like Donovan Mitchell has been bad. Darius Garland has been absent this entire series. I think Gus Johnson said like on the TNT broadcast yesterday that Garland has just been non-existent this entire series. It's spot on. And like Evan Mobley has had moments, but like he has gotten really banged around by the Magic quite a bit. Like Jared Allen has brought it, but like there's only so much Jared Allen can bring you until you realize like the sum of the parts is not as good as we thought it would be. And that's really disappointing, I think, just to see this happen 2 years in a row like it has.
All right, after this, so where does this series stand now? It's 2-2, Game 5 in Cleveland. So what is the series? We'll answer that question after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. It is classic exclusive Google built-in, your always updating assistant you call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. The Nissan lineup that's incredible also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, which has room for up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop at nissanusa.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. There's a foul. You already talked about that, but there's so much just good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friend and for complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the board with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot Pinchico machine, and there's even always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it free on the Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, Evan. So game 5, Tuesday, 2-2. Mm-hmm. Tuesday. Where does this series stand?
Well, it stands at 2 apiece, but
okay, but like, let's get into it.
On a non-sarcastic note, I really do want to see what this team looks like and maybe how they respond to the adversity and the hole they dug themselves in, and I think we'll kind of get a pretty quick tone setter or check of where things are at. One, because Orlando has regained any confidence or swagger that they may have lost or Cleveland seemingly stole from them or broke them on in games 1 and 2. Does that travel with Orlando from Orlando to Cleveland? That's fair to question, just because the Magic weren't good on the road during the regular season or in the playoffs, but they were much different at home. So we'll see. And I think it's just really this series is going to chalk up to who wins that on the road first. Like if Orlando steals game 5, it would not be surprised if they win game 6. If Cleveland wins game 5 and then they win game 6, stranger things have happened. But it also could go to 7 where like each home team wins and eventually the Cavs just ride this out. It's just a bit of a grind at that point. But
okay, but let me just ask you this. Do you have any
going into this one
Do you have any confidence that this Cavs team is good though? Like that's kind of the question
I have
here. Like, do you think
they're good? It's just, do they have the confidence in themselves at this point? Just because they had to feel good about themselves heading into game 3, and Orlando rattled their cage quite a bit, and they looked strong in the first half of game 4 and then came out flat, like inexplicably flat. So like I can't chalk up, and like I don't know where the confidence level is within that locker room. I'm sure they'll say publicly that like there's nothing wrong or like they have to do things differently, and like it seems Jared Allen called out JB Bickerstaff's game plan or like defensive scheme in game 3, but like I don't know. Like it's just like I'm throwing it to the wind to see where it's at, and I need this team just to kind of show me like they're still fine despite, just the hole they've put themselves in.
Yeah, that makes me think Orlando, maybe we should think of Orlando as having the advantage because Orlando hasn't like crapped the bed. Like, yes, both teams have defended their home court. The Cavs still have two more games at home. They are, last I looked at FanDuel, they are 4.5-point favorites for game 5. There's nothing in the last 2 games and the way it has gone that would make me feel good about the Cavs. That's kind of where I'm at. Like Orlando, yes, Orlando lost the first 2 games. You would have thought Cleveland had the advantage then. We talked about that. They have the basic way I look at this series now is Orlando responded to adversity and crushed it. The Cavs gave Orlando some adversity, have now faced adversity, and have absolutely folded in the face of that adversity. Where that leaves you is they could win, they could lose it. But the energy so much just favors what Orlando is doing and what they are about right now. Whereas the Cavs are like looking for answers, and you can't tell me what their identity is. You can tell me what Orlando's identity is. You can tell me that Franz Wagner's probably like he's now building momentum and really responding well after a rough season. He played that game in game 4. What are the Cavs? What is Darius Garland? What is Evan Mobley? What is Donovan Mitchell right now? What is Max Strus? What are any of these guys? I think that puts the Cavs in an entirely uncomfortable place, and they have to show us something that I don't know if they've ever showed us this entire. If they are going to actually win the series, there's something in that locker room, in that team that they have to show. Probably in game, I think certainly in game 5.
Yeah. If
they're actually going to pull this off, there's something in there they have not shown this entire year about toughness and grit, and showing you that they are more than last year, which is something the guys that were there last year have talked about over and over again. You have to actually show it now, and if it's either there or it's not, we're going to find out.
I think they showed it in game 1, like the blueprint for success.
Yeah, but Evan,
Orlando countered that by just putting Wendell Carter Jr. back in the starting lineup, and it kind of threw a wrench in everything the Cavs have tried to do, and it took the wind out of their sails. So,
and then they scored 10 points in a quarter. Like, they scored 10 points in a quarter.
I know, and then but do the Cavs or does more so JB Bickerstaff have the comfort to make the adjustment to counteract that? I don't know. Just because they haven't yet, and it's been 2 games of it now. Like they have not really responded to whether it's a halftime or game by game adjustment that the Magic have made. The Cavs have not responded well to it because it just seems like they didn't prepare for it, or like they didn't possibly think like, oh, in this scenario, if we do this, Orlando's going to do this to counteract it. It's just like it seems like they think it's going to be a linear process every single time, and the Magic are just going to kind of throw the same exact scheme at them all 4 to 7 or however many games it takes in this series. But now it's 5, possibly 6, and 6 now, possibly even more. But that's the thing. And like, that's, again, it stupefies me. Like the Cavs have not responded well when the Magic flipped the script ever so slightly. And then they're like, well, what do we do? I'm like, well, what do you mean? What do you do? Like you should be able to respond to this stuff and be able to make your own adjustments, whether it's on like a game by game basis or like, like you do it at halftime or whatever. But like, there's ways to change these things to make it more easier for yourself. And the Cavs just don't seem determined to make it easier on themselves.
Is this also though, not like a toughness question? Like, I don't know if this is just like a tactical thing anymore.
It could be both. I think the toughness thing is certainly fair because like you saw the glimmers of it in 1 and 2, but then, like I said, you begin to question it again, like how real was that toughness? Because I love Wendell Carter Jr., but I don't think he alone is like the barometer of your toughness, or like should be the guy that completely shuts it down entirely. But like if he exposes it that it's kind of, fake, like that's where I begin to question it quite a bit more. Like, I don't know. Like for you, what would indicate toughness? I think I should ask, just as like it's such a broad term.
Sure, but I think it's the idea that like you don't look like a game 3 of a game or a game 4. Put it this way, very simply. You're up 7 after that first half against your Orlando Magic on the road. You're back in control to some degree. A team that is like locked in and tough and ready for this would not have played the third quarter the Cavs did. That is not a whole tactical thing. That is true. There's coaching adjustment stuff. There is personnel stuff, whatever. There is something in that is not just about like the actual on-court. That is about like what the makeup of your team is. It just is. Like you don't play like that if you are wired in a different way. That does not happen to teams that like are actually ready for this or up for this. The Cavs are telling you that they are not up for this when they play like that in a playoff game that they were up by 7 at halftime and have a 27-point swing going into the fourth quarter. That happens when you're not really about it in the way you need to be.
Yeah, I understand what you mean by toughness. Yeah, the Cavs showed that when the pressure got tight, that they shied away from the moment. To paraphrase Jared Allen last year, the lights got a little too bright for them, and they shied away from the severity and intensity of the moment, because if the Cavs showed the grit and fortitude and toughness that they supposedly claim to have, they likely would be coming home with a 3-1 lead right now and wrapping up this series in 5, just because the Cavs got punked in that third quarter. And like you said, the 27-point swing certainly played a huge part in it. I mean, certainly set the tone for the fact that the Magic aren't here to mess around, and like they aren't like a first-time playoff team that you should take or underestimate. But yeah, I don't know who it starts with. I think it certainly does start with like you need Darius Garland to actually show a pulse. You need Donovan Mitchell to be better and more efficient with his shooting and not so careless with the basketball. And then you need guys like Max Strus and George Niang to find that rhythm that they just magically lost as soon as this series began, or maybe JB Bickerstaff needs to actually show some comfort in pulling different levers and calling on Sam Merrill or like even Marcus Morris Sr. just to give you different looks on the perimeter, or try and maybe just give you a little bit of something different. But like the Cavs need to tap in somewhere, and I think it does start with like your very highly paid backcourt being better, and also just like finding some of that shooting rhythm. Like again, the fact that they took 17 3-pointers in game 4 is staggering, because like that's such a low number compared to what their seasonal averages are, and like clearly like that's a bread and butter for them to find success. But like at the same time, I don't know if the Cavs have a bread and butter outside of just like not spraying and praying, but like taking a high volume of threes and making them at a decent steady clip. Like I'm having a hard time like deciphering like where it starts, but I do think it really does start with Mitchell and Garland, and they have to be those tone setters. And like you said, you need a guy who is kind of not afraid to be the baddest dude on the court and kind of cross somebody up or get chippy with them. Like there was a moment where I think Garland and Anthony got chippy with each other. Like even if after the double technical foul, like Darius Garland should have like the at least the pride and self-respect to then go at Orlando and kind of like make them regret for like waking him up a little bit. But at the same time, Donovan Mitchell was told after game 3 that the Magic were doing the too small taunt to him. And he's like, that's fast. That's interesting. And Mitchell came out pretty strong in the first half and then just turned off the gas in the second half. So who knows? I don't know. Maybe nothing will shock this team into actually caring and not going through the motions as much.
I think they're just telling you what they are, is where I'm at. All right, after this, game 5, what are we looking for? Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Want to make mom smile? Start Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from the brand she loves, delivered the very same day with DoorDash. Pair flowers with a gift card so she can celebrate any way she wants. Is she a bookworm? Try a books or a gift card. Does she love a good latte? Get a gift card to her favorite coffee shop. You can't go wrong. Shop with savings that would make her proud. With a Dash Pass membership, you'll save with a $0 delivery fee and reduced service fees on eligible orders from Dash Pass merchants that meet the minimum subtotal. Other fees, including service fee, apply. Terms apply. Get all of your Mother's Day gifts in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with code LOCKEDONNBA. That is LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Again, that code is LOCKEDONNBA to get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. All right, so Evan, what are you actually looking for in Game 5? Like, if you're looking first quarter, Game 5, give me something nuanced, give me something specific that you are looking for when we tip off, when we see the tip off on Tuesday.
For the Cavs to take it right to the teeth of Orlando defensively, and they just do that bread and butter of the pass. Like, they run a pick and roll with either probably Jared Allen and then Darius Garland's the ball handler. You build that rhythm and momentum and maintain or re-embrace that downhill approach that has been a formula of success for Cleveland all season long, and I think has been in at least the first two games and in the first half of Game 4, like putting pressure at the rim, forcing Orlando to kind of overcorrect and focus on defending the big guys, and then opening up opportunities for guys like Max Strus or Donovan Mitchell, who is 7 of 28 from three-point range in this series, to find rhythm and cadence on the perimeter as well. And then George Niang too, because it wouldn't surprise me if he gets minutes as well. But just maintain that downhill approach and just maybe, like, again, impose that physicality, that supposed toughness on Orlando by hitting them with the first punch, by just meeting them at the summit, and maybe make them question or regret putting Wendell Carter Jr. into the starting lineup in place of Jonathan Isaac, and make them second guess that, just slight adjustment they made just in their lineups just to counteract how much damage Jared Allen and, to an extent, Evan Mobley were doing in the first two games.
I would say two things for me, and they're both, I think, just they're a little more nebulous. They're a little more. They're not. I'm not really worried about. I'm not so much worried about like what they do anymore, as much as I would be worried about, or interested in what they do, as much as like how they do it. It's a carry yourself question, I think, for me. Now, number one, I want to see what the crowd's like. The Cavs are not giving like that crowd like a reason to be super invested in that game. They've not.
They've gotten booed a few times.
There are still tickets available.
Yeah, I do wonder if part of it is like when the game starts, because if the Suns win tonight, because we're recording this Sunday morning, the Cavs will start at 6:30, but if the Suns lose, they start at 8, I believe. So like I think that maybe that plays a part in it. But yeah,
I don't know if the hour and a half difference is gonna make that much of a difference, because people are either gonna care or they're not. Like, I think we're just kind of there. Like, this isn't, I don't really have much nuance on that. I think it's people are gonna care, they're gonna be invested and believe, or they're not, and what that feels like is gonna be is what it is. That just is what it is. The second part of it is just, what are the Cavs like? How do they show up? Do they like, can they sustain like a whole game, because they need to play a whole game, which they haven't done in 2 games now.
Mm-hmm.
Where they are like in it, they are locked into what they're doing, they are executing, and the effort is there, and they don't look rattled. Like, you don't look around and wonder like, does anyone like, are they up for this? It can't be 2 quarters. It can't be a quarter. It can't be the first 6 minutes then go away. It has to be the whole game. It doesn't, to me, it's like there's tactical stuff you can get into. I think like how like them adjusting some and finding different like looks is part of it. Sure. Finding ways to like get Mitchell going again and what you can do to get him comfortable and rolling is a big thing. He has to play better. He said so himself after Game 4. But I think to me, it starts with like, what is your effort level? What is your buy-in? What is your commitment to actually like being over a basketball team? Because if they play anything like they have in Orlando at home in Game 5, they're losing Game 5.
Yeah,
they will.
without a doubt. Like they play like they did in game 3 or even game 4, both games, just at all. Like I'd say the first half of game 4 notwithstanding, if you're able to have 2 of those, I think that's the recipe and formula for success at home. And that definitely gave me vibes of how they looked in game 1 and for the better part of game 2, until at least Orlando started to blitz Mitchell quite a bit in the second half of game 2. But yeah, they if they come out flat, or if they look like they've been emotionally just kind of shaken by how the Magic have responded to them, it's Orlando's going to be the team that smells blood in the water, whereas the Cavs weren't in game 3, and they certainly weren't in game 4 either. So I am interested to see, like, one, how the fan shout is a good one. Are the fans engaged? Do they care? Will there be enough butts in the seats, or will there be, I don't know, will it be an empty arena? But I am curious about that, and I am also just like, it is like the Cavs are not handling the pressure well, but I do wonder how the Magic are handling this pressure too, because they weren't good in the first 2 games in Cleveland. They are now tied up 2 apiece. There is a little bit of that. Okay, but there's an onus for both sides to win game 5. Like, do the Magic press and the Cavs take advantage of that? I hope that would be the case, but yeah, it does start and end with like Donovan Mitchell more than anything. Like, he is so heliocentric to this offense for the Cavs, and I think unlocks so much, especially just with the defensive attention he can command, especially from the Magic. Like, you gotta put up what you're saying, man. Like, you go on record saying you want to be known as one of the all-time greats, and that results in playoff runs. Like, dude, you flamed out 3 years in a row in the first round and kind of looked pretty lackluster in all 3 first round appearances. Like, you gotta kind of do it yourself at some point too. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's just I'm having a really hard time gauging what this Cavs team is capable of, or what game 5 is going to be like, and that's just kind of, it gives me pause and a little bit of unease, just not knowing like what to expect, just because that's how badly this trip to Orlando went for them.
Let me just put it this way: the Magic pressure question. I hear you. That's a young team in the playoffs for the first time. Look at how they responded to being down. Look how they played down 2-0 and going back home.
Very fair.
And look at how the Cavs just have acted over the last 2 games.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, that's a very fair point. Excuse me.
We got Franz Wagner like pointing at George Niang, and like they're reveling in it, and the Cavs are like, the lights are bright again.
The Wagner have really rattled Cleveland's cage quite a bit, whether it's Franz or Mo, and Mo has really been a thorn in their side.
Yeah. A lot for the Cavs to prove in game 5, but ahead of game 5, I will also have a crossover with Locked On Magic goes Philip Rossman-Reich. We're going to get ready for game 5. I'm going to get his insight on where some of these questions as well, and he'll pick my brain and some things. I'm sure that is coming in your feeds in the next day or so. So that'll be the next Locked On Cavs, and Evan and I will be back after game 5, a pivotal, massive game 5 for the Cavs. Now the Cavs' future. It feels like one of those games that is a pivot point.
And
what?
Since you're not Philip on best of 3 series, how do you think this goes? Do you think it's Cavs in 6, Magic in 6, Cavs in 7, Magic in 7?
I would just say I favor Orlando at this point. They have shown me more. Like, again, maybe I'm prisoner of the moment. The Cavs have absolutely not looked like an actual basketball team in 2 games, and the Magic have. And the Magic like look like they like know what they are, and the Cavs don't.
I agree with you. I don't know when it'll finish, but momentum in favor is certainly on Orlando's side of things. Does FanDuel even have a line out for tomorrow's game yet?
4.5 is the spread right now, which I felt a little bit high to me. Cavs are money line favorites. Obviously, if they're 4.5 point favorite, you get a home bump. It's a lot of faith in the Cleveland Cavaliers from FanDuel.
Yeah, fair. The Magic were 2.5 point favorites for game 3. So, and I think also the same for game 4.
Yeah. Cavs have some proving to do. They need to just be a real team for like 5 seconds, I think.
Well, Yeah, 5 seconds is a good start, and then a whole game.
A quarter, it'd be great. Like just a quarter. If you're winning at half, maybe play the third quarter like the game. The game's still got to be finished.
Yeah, like you didn't win the game at halftime. Like there's still a full half to play still. So
yeah,
we shall see though. Hopefully it goes better than the end of game 4 or all game 3 did. That's all I can really say at this point.
Yeah, I'm there to watch it. That's about it. All right, we're gonna end there. I'm Chris. That's Evan. Have a great Sunday/Monday, everyone. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the weather.